The Sherpa Screening Room is a presentation of podcast picks with Jim the Podcast Sherpa. These are episodes featuring interviews with artists and creators from various fields. Coincidentally, when the Sherpa tries to be entertaining, afterwards, he gets abandoned in various fields.
Prepare to be inspired with this week's episode of The Sherpa Screening Room. Mark Gray, author of The Las Vegas Massacre Connections, drops by to discuss the power of healing from tragedy. It's a powerful enough story to make the Sherpa ugly cry. Or, as it pertains to him, cry.
Coming to you from Sherpa Chalet in beautiful downtown Mount Podcastia, it's time for entertainment interviews in the Sherpa Screening Room. Grab an aisle seat and a bucket of popcorn, but don't crunch too loud or you'll miss the show. Now, here's your host, Jim, the Podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels of the Sherpolution, and welcome to the Sherpa Screening Room. It is a side project of Podcast Picks with me, Jim the Podcast Sherpa. I'm coming to you from Sherpaloo Studios here in the Sherpa Chalet, high atop Mount Podcastia. And in these episodes, we don't talk about podcasts, but we get to talk to the creators, writers, actors, singers, directors, producers, people who bring all sorts of talents to the world. And this week is, I think, a special episode. I know we don't really have too many very special episodes, but I think we can address this one as such. My guest is a guy named Mark Gray. He is a writer, and he's worked for People magazine and Rolling Stone. And in 2017, one of America's worst mass shootings occurred in the city of Las Vegas at a country music festival. And Mark was actually there. He has come out with a book talking to the survivors and some of the survivors' families as well, with how they healed from this horrible incident. And it's really powerful stuff. And Mark is a great guy. I'm glad that I got to spend a little time with him. Actually, I found out at the end of this interview that he actually has a connection to one of our previous guests who is a friend of the show. So that made it even more cool. But Mark is really fantastic. And I think this is a book that you might want to check out to definitely lift up your spirits. And it's weird that a book about a mass shooting is going to lift up your spirits, but it's what we do afterward, how we move on. And that's what the book really focuses on. And Mark really has a powerful message in that book. So why don't we head on over to the Sherpa Screening Room and we will get to have our conversation with Mark Gray, author of The Las Vegas Massacre Connections. Hello there, Rebels. We are here in the Sherpa Screening Room. My guest today is an author. This is his first book. It's called The Las Vegas Massacre Connections, Finding Strength Through Tragedy After America's Deadliest Mass Shooting. His name is Mark Gray. He's coming to us from the beautiful city of Las Vegas, Nevada. Is there a special nickname for that? Do they call it Sin City? Do they still call it that?
Most people in Nevada don't call it that, but people do call it that outside of Las Vegas, that's for sure.
After they've lost enough money, I guess, right?
That's right. Yeah, and if you're flying, any airline into Las Vegas, they always say the same thing. Welcome to lost wages. And they all think they're clever, and we'll just let them think that.
So you were originally a writer for People magazine since 2005, is it?
2006, I started People magazine. Yeah, I'm originally from Salt Lake City, and I moved to Las Vegas in 2005. Did public relations for a cup of coffee or so, and then I got a job with People magazine on staff, being their Las Vegas correspondent. I did that for 8 years. I left in 2014, but I stayed on as a freelancer, and I've done all kinds of things for them, and I still do to this day. I'm currently their Vegas correspondent, so I basically cover all the Vegas events, concert residencies, red carpets, award shows, things like that.
What's the biggest thing going on in Vegas right now that you would say?
Oh, it's the Sphere. It's not even close. Yeah. I mean, the Sphere is everything right now. The Backstreet Boys just finished, and that show was unbelievably good. And they've got the Wizard of Oz right now is doing insane numbers. The Eagles are back again, which just continue to draw just massive crowds day in and day out. So the answer is definitely the Sphere.
And lost wages too.
And lost wages, yes.
That's like a little subheading.
I mean, it's NFL season, so you could argue, the Raiders, but the Raiders don't get the love like the Sphere does, I don't think, right now.
They've got to learn to put special effects on their uniforms. Maybe that will do the trick.
That's
okay.
Right.
So for those of you who don't know, and I don't know, who or who would not know, maybe people outside of the United States, the book that you've written is about something that occurred on October 1st, 2017 in Las Vegas. And this was during the Route 91 Harvest Festival.
That is true.
And there was a country concert going on, and there was like an open area behind one of the hotels, right? This is how it worked?
Yeah, what it was. So there was a big, it's a parking lot right now, and it was then normally too. They called it the Las Vegas Village.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an open air parking lot, and it was a 3-day country music festival. And the shooting happened on the last act of the last day, the third day. So I was actually there I was there working for Rolling Stone because I worked for them also.
Okay.
As a freelancer, and I was working. The initial story was supposed to be the 10 best things I saw this weekend at the Route 91 Festival.
Oh, no.
And, Jason Aldean was the headliner of the third day, the last day.
Mm-hmm.
So 9 of those items I had written, they were ready to go and ready to be filed. And I was just waiting for the 10th item was going to be something about Jason Aldean's set, which was going to be about an hour and a half. And the story drastically changed.
Yes. We were 60 people that were killed.
It's 58 or 60 depending on who you ask.
Right, and they said there were like around 400 that were injured, but even more in like the stampede too, right?
Yeah, so the number I always hear is 851.
Okay.
On the number injured, and that could be anything from a hurt toe to shot in the arm kind of thing.
Right.
And that's what's so bizarre about this incident is we don't know motive still to this day. We have no idea. And we can't even agree on how many people died. There are some people of the 58 crowd. I am one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people of the 60 crowd. And the way I see it is 58 people were killed that day. 60 were killed because of that day.
Right. Yeah, I know they said there were others that, because of their injuries, they lived a few days longer and then they passed away.
And if I was one of those two, I'd feel the same way. I'd want to be a part of. I'd say I was a part of the Route 91 crew, but I was not. So
right, and we should add that along with your book, you had a contributor.
Yes.
Her name is Mary Jo Von Tillo. Did I say her name right? And her husband Kirk was killed.
Correct. Yeah,
on that night.
Yeah, Mary Jo was. I did not know her at that time.
Okay,
but her husband Kirk, she was there with her whole family. Her daughter was there. Her niece, her sister-in-law, her husband. Her daughter's then husband at the time, and they were there. They went every single year, and always stood in the same exact spot every single year. And there's no way of really knowing this, but Kurt was either, if he wasn't the first person fatally shot, he was certainly among them because Jason Aldean was still on stage singing when Kurt went down.
Oh wow!
So he was certainly, he might have been the first. If he wasn't, he was among them.
And judging by some of the descriptions that I've read, they said when the first few gunshots went off, people thought that they were fireworks, and then they realized there's something else going on here.
Yeah, I was one of those people too. I was, I heard a couple pops. There were 3 pops, bang, 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 and I didn't think anything of it. I thought they were fireworks, and I thought, what kind of jerk brings fireworks into a concert?
Right.
And a woman not far from me, only about 25 feet from me, started shrieking, and I think she got hit, and I didn't know her. And I just thought, I thought she got hit by a bottle rocket or something of that nature. And there were 3 more pops after that, and still I didn't think anything of it. I thought fireworks again. And there was a pause, and then the barrage happened, and it was just relentless for 11 minutes.
Oh, what was going through your mind when this is happening?
I was in a different situation. I was with a buddy of mine, and he was one of the sponsors of the festival. And so he had kind of an area, we'll call it a VIP area, but it was really nothing more than a refurbished trucking container. It was an aluminum can is really what it was.
Okay.
And so I ran in, I was actually speaking to a friend when the shooting started. So I was kind of in the doorway of this aluminum can. And so I ran in immediately after we realized something's not right here. And so I ran into the back and got on the ground, and everyone was piling into this small, tiny area. And they had windows and all that, and people were banging out the windows to crawl into this, some sort of what they thought was protection.
Right.
And, while we're there I was probably in there for probably 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes or so, but it felt like an eternity. And it's kind of like when they talk about earthquakes, they say, oh, it was only a couple seconds, but it felt like an hour. Right. That was what this was. It felt like forever. And it sounded to me, and again, I was, inside an aluminum type of thing. So there were just echoes constantly. So I thought there were certainly multiple gunmen, and I thought they were in the festival. At no point did I think Mandalay Bay. That never occurred to me one time, that it was across the street, across Las Vegas Boulevard, the famous strip in Mandalay Bay, shooting down at us from a corner suite. Never occurred to me. And so we were, during the shooting, there were a couple of small pauses. And what most people think is he was jumping from gun to gun and kind of going from one corner to the other type of thing. And so that was why the pauses were there. So it was during one of those pauses where I just, me and a bunch of my friends who were with me, we said, now's our time. We got to go. Right. And so we just, attempted to go, and everyone got out except me. I stayed because I was there, remember, I was working for Rolling Stone at that time, and my laptop was in the corner of the room. And my laptop was very important to me at this point.
Oh, no.
So I army crawled on the ground over to my laptop, grabbed that, put it in my backpack, and then I got out of there. And everyone was exiting it was chaos. Everyone was leaving their own different way. I ran straight toward the Vegas airport, which is not that far from where the festival was taking place.
Mm-hmm. Was that McCarran?
Yeah, it was McCarran. Yeah, it's now called Harry Reid, but McCarran Airport.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Listen, we locals still call it McCarran.
Okay.
But yeah, some people actually ran on the runways of the airport. I did not. I ran toward there, and I saw a semi parked in the dirt. It was kind of a dirt lot, and one of the semis, which I assume was actually probably one of the bands that was working there carrying their equipment. And I just got behind that, and finally, after a while, I thought, I have not heard bullets in a while, so maybe they got these people or a person.
Right. I know that was actually one of the theories, that there were several shooters, and like you said, you probably didn't know where the shots were coming from originally because it was just these sounds, and nobody knew that this shooter had that many weapons with him.
Yeah, I had no idea, and there are so many conspiracy theories out there.
Uh-huh.
I really believe none of them myself, but they exist. But my sister at the time worked at Mandalay Bay. And she worked at one of the lounge, one of the bars up there. So she was actually above the shooter, and she was calling me and texting me during it. And at one point, she said she wrote and texted me, "They're saying the shooter's inside Mandalay Bay." Now, in my mind, I think on the casino floor. Again, at no point did I think to myself in a room, in a suite no less, and this is a millionaire shooting at us.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally started making my way back towards Mandalay Bay, which by the time I got there had been evacuated, so I couldn't get in. And finally met a friend at a bar down the road, because it's the only place we could go. You couldn't get an Uber. You couldn't get a taxi cab. I did not drive down there that night, so I was planning on walking home, but which would have been a hell of a hike.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
But it wasn't until I got to, even that when I got to that bar and met my friend, all the TVs were on the local news, but it still wasn't clear what was going on. It wasn't until I got home that I realized the shooting was coming from Mandalay Bay.
Yeah. It was weird because when I was, looking at some of the basic information about the shooting, and I saw 2017, and I'm saying, wow, this was 8 years ago. But I'm sure for all the people that were there, it's probably just feels like such a recent occurrence.
It does. In some ways, it feels like it was longer. In some ways, it feels like this was 3 or 4 years ago. It doesn't feel like 8.
Right.
Especially for someone like me, because I live in Las Vegas, so I drive by that area often. I drive by the shooting site all the time. So it's always, and it's always somber every single time that you drive by.
Sure.
And I think it would be a little odd if it wasn't.
Yeah. So when Mary Jo was helping you write this book and she was giving you her recollections, what was it like for her, I guess? Because they were probably more out in the crowd. Like you said, they always stayed in the same spot. So that was, just something completely out of the ordinary, obviously.
Yeah. It's interesting how this book even came about. So I met Mary Jo at a Los Angeles Angels baseball game in Anaheim, California. Every year, a bunch of survivors go to this particular game. It's always prearranged, but they go to this one particular game. I was there. It was 4.5 years after the shooting. I went there. Rolling Stone hired me to go, and they said, "Go speak to these people." A lot of them don't really want to talk to media, but you're one of them. You were there. You can relate.
Right.
Sent me out. And I started just speaking with many of these survivors. You know, some of these people were shot themselves. Some people lost their husbands, wife, sister, you know, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary Jo Vontillo was actually sitting in front of me at the game. And I started chatting with her. She initially had no interest in speaking to me whatsoever. And thankfully, baseball is a very long game. And so I wore her down, I think is what happened. And so she finally spoke to me for the Rolling Stone article. A year later, she called me and said, hey, I have this idea for this book. And it was, you know, not a book about Route 91, but rather a book about that kind of starts there. It's all the people she's met because of that day that she'd never met. So it's very much a silver linings book, a book of resilience and hope.
Mm-hmm.
And every chapter is kind of a different person, a different, you know, silhouette of someone. Some of these people have intermingled, some have not. But Mary Jo is the thread who ties all of them together.
And really just a book of healing, I guess, too. Probably therapeutic for maybe you just as much as her.
Right. And all the people highlighted have experienced some form of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There's one person we feature who lost his wife at Route 91. There's another guy who lost his friend in 9/11. There's another woman who she was sexually molested by a record executive in Nashville. She's a singer-songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
Another gentleman we highlighted, he lost his, this is wild. Within 3 months, he lost his home to a tornado and his father to a mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh,
so it's a rough 3 months, but and all these people though have kind of turned their life around, and they've, you know, made tragedy has created a transition point for them in their life.
What was the biggest thing for Mary Jo to make that transition in her life?
You know, her thing was she knew that Kurt wouldn't want her moping around is really what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she did her fair share of that. She definitely did her fair share of that for a while. And finally she just said, this is no way to live. And she decided, I'm just going to start she did healing her own different way. Okay. She started just traveling around constantly. You know, she was invited, the Academy of Country Awards invited her to the Country Music Awards invited her to Nashville for the award show. So she went. She got invited to, I think it was the Breeders' Cup. So she went. She got invited to speak at a mass violence, some sort of seminar in, I think it was Florida. So she went. She would just she really just kind of like wanted to escape. And along the way is where she met a lot of these people and said, oh, you know, I can confide in these folks who have dealt with their own kind of trauma and see how they dealt with it and turn their life around. So hers was a very gradual process.
Yeah, I guess, you know, sharing your tragedy with other people who've experienced that too, I guess made her feel less alone. So maybe empowered her to do all of this.
Yeah, and that's, I did not lose anyone like she did, certainly. I experienced some of what she did, obviously, being there that night, but I didn't lose anyone. But I found that for my own healing as well, very similar to her, I was able to very much heal by speaking with people who were also there. Mm-hmm. More so than people who weren't. And I had plenty of people, family members included, who kept saying, if you want to talk about this. And I said, I have no problem talking about it, but I can't really get there with you guys. I can get there with someone else.
Right.
So it was, that sort of shared trauma is really what it came down to.
Yeah. And you're really, staring down your own mortality just because of the actions of one individual.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. And that was kind of the whole point of this book was, you can sit here in misery all your whole life and really no one would blame you, especially Mary Jo or any of these other, victims. But, she wanted a different path for herself. And this is very much a book about silver linings.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, we deal with a lot of, on the show, we talk a lot of true crime and stuff like that. I don't get too many episodes where I get to talk about resilience. So this is what's really cool. You know, I mean, you see the word massacre and you don't think that resilience is part of a book. Yeah. But, I couldn't be more wrong in that situation. And I'm glad that I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting because, it is a true crime book. But at the same time, it's also a book of healing,
Yeah.
It really it's multi-layered. And it's my first book. It was a very interesting process to go through with this. And, and to start it out when her and I first met and said, hey, maybe we should do something. We had no idea if it would turn into anything at all. This might have just been, this very well could have been just a conversation. We left it there and said, oh, nice to meet you. But we really pushed forward. We thought, maybe we have something here.
just like you said, what do they call it? Trauma bonding or something like that? Where I know they use it kind of ironically when people talk about it on on social media, but in reality, I guess you kind of did that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, we did. Yeah, it's fascinating to speak with all these people who who I shouldn't say I don't relate to, because they've had their trauma like I have too.
Mhm.
But it's just interesting hearing their stories, and just a different people from different backgrounds, and that was kind of the whole thing too. Is Mary Jo was talking to this one of the people. She said she didn't want to meet him initially because she said, I have nothing in common with this guy except for the fact that he lost his father and I lost my husband. She says, I'm at the time I think she was in her early 50s or something, and she said, I'm in my early 50s. I'm from Southern California. I'm basically retired. I'm a conservative. This guy over here is a black kid from middle America who's in his early 20s, late 20s, who's a Democrat. And it's not a political situation. It was just like,
Right.
What do we have in common here? And, and these people found common ground because they just stripped all that stuff away and said, are you let's talk about what you went through, what I went through. And these guys now exchange Christmas cards every single year and, talk all the time. So,
Yeah. I mean, we don't talk politics on this show really, but in a country that's become so divisive, it's very heartening to hear that people can just take away all the surface stuff and just say, hey, we are all humans and we experience things the same way very often.
Yeah, it's really, that was what was so refreshing about it, was speaking to all these different people who, even myself, I would never have met these people.
Mhm.
So, Mary Jo talks about it being her silver lining was meeting all these incredible people and learning from them. And, for myself, same situation. I would never have met these people without Mary Jo. And so it's kind of my silver lining also. And I also got to write a book, which is something I always dreamed of doing. So it's a silver lining for me too.
So you don't have to give too much away because, we want people to check this book out. Is there a specific chapter that kind of touches you a little bit more than the other chapters?
Mary Jo's touches me because I'm just so close with her.
Right.
But, stripping that away, I think Tony Berditis is one that really touches me a lot.
Mhm.
He's, I think he's chapter 7, if I remember correctly. But, Tony was actually, I told you there was a couple of Route 91 people. He's the other one. He lost his wife, Denise, that night. And I met Tony in Las Vegas. He came out here probably, I don't know, about 6 months into writing this book or so. And I met with him at Planet Hollywood Hotel. And this man was he is still, and rightfully so, he is still heartbroken. This was, and we talked for hours and hours, fighting through tears. And it's hard not to get emotionally invested in him.
Sure.
This guy is as tough as they come. He's Army Special Forces. He's been, he's a Green Beret like John Wayne back in the day, and he just, this guy who you think could take on the world and really has with his background is just reduced to just a puddle of tears. It kind of shows you that, we're all human, or we all have feelings in our own way. And this man really touched me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it. Now, obviously, we can't tell people how to heal from tragedies like that. But did you notice like a common thread when you were talking to all these people for the book on how they healed?
That's the thing. Everyone healed differently, but everyone kind of said the same thing. It was really just talking to people similar folks.
Mhm.
And Mary Jo's case, she was able to talk to her family because they were there also. In fact, her niece and her sister-in-law also got shot that night.
Wow.
They both survived. And Mary Jo went into shock that night. She was taken to the hospital also. There's a lot of her story.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a lot of layers here on this one. But everyone kind of said the same thing about it. Just helped to talk to someone. The woman who was the singer-songwriter in Nashville who was sexually molested by a record executive. What helped her was speaking to her band about it and kind of coming clean. So it's just this idea of, not keeping it all in and letting it all out.
Yeah.
To the right people, though.
Right. It's a simple step, but I guess sometimes taking that first step is hard for people. But once you do it, I guess they obviously your book is a example of how they were able to, find this therapeutic.
Right. And a lot of people did go to therapy. Some didn't. In some ways, this was their therapy, Sure. For some ways it was mine. After the shooting, when I saw a therapist, I went to one visit, and I remember telling the guy, I feel really terrible that I feel kind of okay. And he said, that's normal. That's a normal feeling, actually. So it really helped me to myself to talk to these people and get through a lot of, what I went through. And that was the other thing, is they were all every bit as interested in my story as I was theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I found really interesting, because I said, I'm writing the book, but, I'm not a part of this book. I'm not being featured here.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was a real interesting tidbit from all of these people.
Yeah, maybe in a way, though, you were, part of it when you think about it. I mean, you removed yourself from their narratives, but in sharing their narratives and understanding what they're going through, that probably made you relatable to them, which obviously, there you go. It made them easy to talk. Like you said, it made them easy to talk to somebody who was there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because I keep going back to what you said earlier about this is a true crime podcast. I very rarely get to speak about resilience on true crime, and it just keeps registering in my mind. You're like, you're right, actually, because at its core, this is a true crime book.
Right.
But it's also but at the same time, it's also this whole narrative of resilience and strength that keeps popping up. So it really is an interesting marriage between all those things.
Absolutely. So if people want to find this book, it is out. I know it's through your publisher now, right? But not yet on Amazon. Is that correct?
So it comes out on October 14th, being published by Wild Blue Press. It'll be on Amazon on October 14th. Right now, it is available through pre-order for Kindle, but on the 14th, everything goes live with hardcover, paperback, audio, ebook, the whole kit and caboodle, and a partridge in a pear tree, all that stuff.
Okay, that's good, because by the time this episode comes out, they'll be able to access it. They won't have to wait too long.
So Las Vegas Connections, it'll be on Amazon, say October 14th. It's going live.
All right. Now that you had your opportunity to get your feet wet with writing a book, I know that obviously this is for a very unique situation, understandably so. If you're going to write your own book, what would you want to write about?
I love mysteries. Like when I read books, I tend to lean towards kind of thrillers and mysteries and things like that. And I've sort of always thought about, if I were to write something, that would be the lane I would probably go down, I think. And I always kind of thought I didn't have the brain for that. I didn't have, the bandwidth for such a thing. Having done this now, I don't know. I think I could at least certainly try, I think, and go down that road, because having written this one, you very quickly realize and recognize the pitfalls, even after one, of what not to do and what to do.
Right.
So, I got to find, I got to figure out if I'm going to my heroine, if I, or hero of whatever it is, and go from there. But it is, it's a lot of people have asked me last week or so, you plan on doing another one? I would love to do another one. Whether it's nonfiction, fiction, I'm open. I have a gentleman who I know, I ran into him at a hockey game actually a week ago, and he said, "Hey, I meant to talk to you. My dad has always wanted a book about his life." And I said, everyone thinks their life is book worthy. That's not always how it works. And and I said, you say it in a polite way, obviously, sure,
right?
But but I said, he goes, "Oh, well, tell me about him." He goes, "Well, my dad is 79. He was involved with the mob in Vegas, and he has a lot of stories, but he was waiting for them all to die before he could tell his stories because he was afraid." I said, "I'm intrigued already. I'm intrigued."
Talk about an elevator pitch that wins you in 30 seconds, right?
And something tells me that's true crime also. I'm going to go on a limb and guess that's true crime.
There you go. You can be true crime adjacent, Mark. I don't think they have any rules about that.
I'd say that's what we're working towards, is just potentially a second book, just kind of figure out what. And I've had a lot of people ask me to do a Route 91 specific book on just victims. And so that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
We'll one at a time. We'll see how this one does and move on to the next.
So if people want to find out more about you and the work that you're doing, where can they go?
Well, they can call me. No,
you might get a lot of calls, Mark.
Yeah, it's like, I still write for People Magazine a lot, so I'm on their website constantly. I don't have a website yet. I'm working on that. If I do have a website, it'll be markgraymedia.com.
Okay.
That's where it'll be if once I eventually get my butt in gear and do something like that. But yeah, most of my stuff is and my social media handle is the Mark Gray.
Okay.
On Instagram, And that's where I post a lot of my stuff is on Instagram. So at the Mark Gray.
Okay. We will let people know that.
I'm not on TikTok.
Oh, go ahead. You're not on TikTok?
Not on TikTok. I am on Facebook. It's the Mark Gray 33 because the first one was taken.
Okay. All right. So again, the book is called The Las Vegas Massacre Connections. His name is Mark Gray, and we'll throw this in at the end. He is a friend of the pod, Mr. Jordan Runtagh, just by coincidence, it so happens. So we're not going to hold that against you, Mark, I promise. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Jim.
Listen and subscribe on podcast apps everywhere. And we're on YouTube at Sherpolution. Sorry, no video. You're welcome.
Thank you so much to Mark Gray. And if you would like to purchase a copy of the Las Vegas Massacre Connections, we have a link for you right in the show notes, and you can purchase it right through there and help support Mark in spreading this really powerful message. And thank you for spending some time here. And if you want to find out a little bit more about the show, by the way, we've got two link pages. If you go to Linktree/Sherpolution or chirp.me/Sherpolution, you can see all of our social media links, which of course are Sherpolution, naturally. And you can connect to all of the episodes that we've gone so far and all the places that you can go to hear them. And if you want to support the show for absolutely no money whatsoever, you can catch us on open.video, or you can actually go to our Sherpolution YouTube page or download us on any of your podcast apps. I'm sure you have a favorite out there, don't you? Yeah, you know you do. But we're not going to ask that right now. But if you want to tell me, that's fine too. Just reach out to me on social media at Sherpolution, and we will be back next week. And like I've said, I've got some really fascinating interviews coming up. So far, out of the ones that I've got scheduled for this season, and they're all really very different, and they're all really with some really fascinating people. So I hope that you enjoy them and that you subscribe so that you will always know when a new episode is out. Every Wednesday, that's when the new ones come out. And also on Saturdays, where we do Sherpa Selects, where we play my favorite episodes from the first 7 seasons so I can load them onto the YouTube channel. That's my ulterior motive, as they say. But that'll do it for me, folks. So I will say to you, Viva la Sherpolution.
Thanks for listening to the Sherpa Screening Room. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. I'm Mr. Bruce, and this has been a Sherpaloo Studios production. Viva la Sherpolution!